Hello and welcome to the Community Insights webinar. We are going to go ahead and get started here. And of course, the title is, Insights on How to Run Your Own DIY Research Community. My name is Esther Lavielle, and I'm filling in for Vivek Bhaskaran today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the text tool on the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll make sure to review the questions and also make any needed adjustments in terms of audio, volume, or screens, as well as answer any of your questions that you have during the Q&A session. And of course, today's webinar is hosted by Survey Analytics. We are an enterprise data collection software company that helps companies manage, grow, listen, and also improve the data collection process. We also develop industry-leading online and mobile technology for surveys, community management, and employee engagement solutions. Today we have a wonderful team of presenters. First we have Ivana Taylor, who's the president of Third Force, a strategic marketing firm that helps small to medium-sized companies get and keep loyal, profitable customers regardless of price. She's also the publisher of DIYmarketers.com, an online publication that provides low-cost marketing strategies, ideas, and resources. And next we have John Johnson, who's our Chief Growth Officer here at Survey Analytics and the Community Solutions Expert. He also has a well-rounded background using online, mobile, and community tools, as well as over 12 years of market research experience. And over the past 4 years, he's worn many hats here and has also supported customers and the product management for Survey Analytics. And last but not least, we have Heather Carpenter, who is a research analyst from Pilot Media Online, who's also an active community solutions client of Survey Analytics. Heather is a research analyst with over 10 years of research experience, has a master's degree from University of Georgia in exercise science, and is in charge of Pilot Media's community solutions. On today's 30-minute agenda, we will review the 2015 Trends and Importance of Communities by Ivana Taylor. We'll also do a demo on how to set up communities by John Johnson. And we'll also look at a business use case by Heather Carpenter. And last but not least, we'll open the floor to all community members and do a live discussion and Q&A. So let's talk about 2015 trends with Ivana. Ivana, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome. I'm really excited, and I'm going to cover 4 big trends today. They're going to range in, they're called skepticism, influence marketing, whale watching, and personalization or co-creation. So let's start off with skepticism. You can move to the next slide. There was one. There we go. So I really wanted to, and you guys all know what I'm talking about. The prevailing ethos in our culture right now is that trust is dead. So the guy you see here is Michael Meslansky, and he is a political strategist, and he's written a book a few years ago called The Language of Trust. And in that book, he says that half the people we need to convince don't trust us, and the other half don't want to hear what we have to say. And you guys know that this is very, very true these days. No company, if a company is speaking for itself or a small business owner is speaking for themselves, their customers basically just don't believe them. And so, in fact, there is a trust barometer that was done a little while ago that talks about the fact that people just, I think the, like, politicians and salespeople are some of the least trusted at only like 6 or 9%. I think the Gallup organization does this. And the most trusted professions are people like nurses, and that's only at 82, which is like a low C or B or something pathetic. Either way, the fact is that you have to deal with the fact that your audience basically doesn't trust anything you say, right? So let's move on to the next slide, because all of these sort of tell a story. Now, because trust is dead, you've seen this rise of what I call influencer and advocate marketing. There is a distinction between influencers and advocates. Advocates are like raving fans of your brand. So for example, I'm a user of survey analytics, Heather's a user of survey analytics, right? These are people who have experience with your product or service. They've used it, they like it, and they're advocates, right? And influencers are people who have a broad reach. So I happen to fall into the influencer category because I have a broad reach of engaged readers and people who ask my advice. So this is why the consumer and word of mouth is generating twice the sales of paid advertising. So the research is there that supports the fact that trust is dead, and when people don't know who to trust, they're either going to go to influencers that they trust, or they're going to go to advocates, right? And so here it says that 25% of the people chose to engage with brands because they want to join the community of brand fans. And you see this in the consumer markets, whether it's with Apple products or maybe Mini Coopers, people, or my friend drives a Prius, so there's like this whole little Prius community. People like being a part of an engaged community where they can share their experiences. Okie dokie. So the other trend I wanted to talk about is what I call whale watching. This is the ever-present 80-20 rule. So, and inside of that, the strategy that people use this for is what I call fast laning your top customers. So we're all familiar with this idea that 20% of your customers are responsible for 80% of your sales. And so if you have an engaged community, you're already reaching these people who are most engaged, most influential, biggest advocates, and that is a huge driver for success. So this idea of collecting a community around you of engaged people, it doesn't take much, right? With this 80-20 rule, it doesn't take much to really make a huge impact on your sales. And so the other trend I wanted to talk about that comes after this one, and the last trend is something that we've been calling co-creation. You might even notice it as personalization. People have used that as well. The way the co-creation trend works is that whether it's through social media or forum groups or whatever channel that you're going to use to get into engaged conversation with your customers, users, communities, and where they are making requests for products and services and you're talking to them about those requests, and ultimately you're incorporating their feedback into the future development of your product. I don't know how it is, this doesn't happen so much in product markets, but let me tell you, it certainly happens in service markets, and it most certainly happens in the area that I work in terms of developing content for small business. What we often do is research and engage our community and find out what matters to them. And just based on those top points, I start answering their questions. And then let's say we do a webinar or something, and then they give me more feedback. It's through this co-creation process that we actually spend far, far less time in product development because we're engaging with our community and they tell us exactly what they want. So that has them enrolled in the development process, and now you've just instead of doing a lot of trial and error, you've really developed products that they want and that they have a stake in, and that makes them loyal. And of course you can see how this builds right back into it. It makes them loyal, it makes them part of that advocate influencer community, and then they go out and talk about your product and service, and that sort of overcomes that trust barrier. So those are like the four top trends that we can definitely see coming into fruition over 2015, Esther.
Thank you, Ivana, for sharing on trends and importance of communities and co-creations. Let's check to see if there's a few questions from the audience here. I did have one question from an audience member for you, Ivana. They asked, why do you think community is the X factor solution for people to adopt in 2015?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because it sort of blanked out a little bit. Why do I think
No
what?
problem. Why do you think communities is the X factor solution people should adopt in
Ah,
2015?
got it, right? So the reason I think the communities are so important, especially for businesses, let's say, whose audiences are not so much on social media, is because if you really think about it, having a community is actually an asset. Like an asset, imagine that member of your community being like a, I don't want to liken them to a piece of equipment, but when I say the word asset, that's exactly what I mean, right? Because you invested time and money to engage them and to bring them into your community. And that community space, that private managed space, belongs to you. All those people that you're engaging with, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Google Plus or Pinterest or whatever channel platform that you're using, don't belong to you. The comments and things that they leave on those platforms do not belong to you, and hence they are not your asset. They only become an asset once they give you their email, right? They engage with you and they join your community. Once they've joined your community, now on your platform, in your space, that makes them yours, and that is extremely profitable.
Yes, that's a really, really good answer there. And I agree. Once people become an asset, especially in your community, the type of feedback that you get is so much more powerful. So thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move on to our next presenter. We have John Johnson, who will be presenting on the 6 steps of creating and deploying and analyzing an insights community.
Thank you, Esther, and thank you, Ivana. Um, that was great information, and you can be my sound engineer for this mic check as I take over.
Sounds good to me.
Great. And yeah, I mean, I think everything you hit was money. And as Esther indicated, I'm going to go into the 6 steps. And I want to thank everybody out there in the virtual world coming to this webinar who's watching this later, as your time is always valuable and it's appreciated. Ivana, you mentioned a Prius. I happen to drive one, which is good. I think anytime looking at a platform, you want to make sure that you kick the tires and you do a walk around. I never understood that until when they were telling me that in driver's ed, until I drove off down the street and my tire was flat. So, when you're looking at a platform, there's a few things that you want to look at. And here we're at the survey analytics tool. We're on our communities tab. And you can see I've created actually several communities, right? Agile in that way where I can have different pockets for different needs. Maybe I'm running a consumer panel. Maybe I'm running a private panel. I want to make sure that I'm able to do these things when I'm working within a platform. And I want to simply click create new community. I want to give that community a name, that community a heading, and go ahead and fix my URL. Why is this important? I think one thing is you're going to be, this side of it is the panel. This is where you're managing. This is where you're distributing surveys. This is where you're rewarding points and controlling an inventory. But when we start inside this platform, we start with setting up the community. And the community is where those who are going to participate, who are basically your community members or your respondents, it's the landing page for them. And that's where they can register, but it's also where they can log in. That means they can dive into a member portal. And these are things that we want to be looking for. So I'm going to go into this Call of Duty community, which I've set up, and I've given it a URL that I can go ahead and visit. I can log in. I can also find out more information about this community. And if I am a member, I can go in and see which surveys I have available. If I'm using points and rewards to as engagement pieces for the community, then all of those things are going to be found there in the member portal. But from this side of the platform, really the next step is we want to start customizing the look and feel of that community. And the Survey Analytics platform makes that really easy. We can go ahead and pull in our community header, which can be the branding and imaging of a particular company or product. And we also have a lot of things where you can dive into the HTML and really customize it and give it a warm and feel and really match the brand, because you want your community to match the brand and where they're coming. The next thing that we're going to want to do is tap into our advanced settings, which we find here in our left navigation. And as you can see, we have our community modules. These are the engagement pieces that we can turn on and off. And so you want to look for things like points and rewards. You want to look for things like community questions. You want to look for things like live discussions. You want to look for things like community events, because this is what keeps your community members engaged. It creates quality assets and it keeps them coming back so you can get good and rich data from your community members. Okay. The next thing you want to think about when we go to the left navigation here and we click profile, one of the really, really key things is there's a lot of juicy information that you may want to collect from community members. If you're already running a community, maybe today you're running a community, you have an Excel file and you're utilizing Access, right? And that's how you're running your community. Well, you might have some juicy information and data that you want to bring in to a tool. And you want to make sure you have the flexibility to create those profile fields, as we call them here, and be able to map that existing data if you have it. If not, hey, look, when members join, they can update this information. And this now means you can not only deploy surveys to the users based on this information. So if you only want a survey to go out to males in a certain area or females in another, you can do such. But also when the data comes back in, you can analyze that data alongside this profiling information. Okay. And the next thing is, if you are going to be using a rewards strategy, a points and rewards strategy, you want to think about your incentives. And the Survey Analytics platform makes it really easy in terms of inventory. I'm going to click inventory here. And we have third-party providers through Tango Card that allows us a vast array of a catalog of virtual rewards, basically gift cards. And, Amazon is one to mention. That is a very popular virtual currency today. But also, if you have your own particular coupons or your own rewards that you want to reward, you can set up that inventory in this system, and you can distribute through the system, and it makes it really, really easy. So it's a seamless process. Users take a survey, their points are rewarded. They can go to their member portal and they can redeem their reward. Okay. So, we set up our community. We've thought about the look and feel. We've decided what kind of information we want to keep handy on these members. We've set up our incentive structure. Really, the next thing to start thinking about is those members. Some of the key things you can do is if you're already heavy social in other communities, and what I mean by that is Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, etc. Reach out to people in that way and say, hey, come over to this community, join. We're going to be doing some exciting things. We want you to be a part. We want you to be heard, and we want to incentivize you for that. As I said, if you already have a list or if you already have a community that you're simply merging over, you can simply go ahead and use our import process and bring those members in, which is a really, really good tool. After that, when you've thought about your members, you got members in, are you doing a heavy campaign to get new members? Now it's time to really start getting their feedback. And making sure you have a tool that has a really strong delivery mechanism is great. We're going to click invitations here. We're going to click send. And we can now select any survey from our Survey Analytics account and deploy that out to our community. But better than that, if you have a survey that you've built in another tool, or if you're working with a client who's built a survey in another tool, you can still deploy that survey to the community. And this platform makes that really easy. Okay. And we can decide if we want to give points for this survey, for completing, over quota, or terminate. And when we go through the flow, which is only a 4-step process, after we selected our survey, we can now filter. This is the filtering process. We can decide, who do I exactly want to send this out to in this particular community? And again, if they're in a certain area, also based on any of the profile fields that you've set up, maybe you know which department they're in an organization, maybe you have gender, you have age, etc. You can really dial in to what that particular survey calls for, rather than just flooding your entire community to take a survey that they may not qualify for. Okay. We can decide if we want to deliver this now or schedule for future delivery. And then we give it one final view before we send it off. Okay. And then we deploy and process for delivery. And then we're able to go into our history in the left nav and review the results of that particular survey and start analyzing that data. And if you're using the survey analytics platform and you built the tool in there, you can also go over to our analytics tool, which is very robust, and do some really great analytics online before even exporting your data to really get in there and do some additional analysis. But we've looked under the hood, which is great, but I like to go to the other side, and that's the experience of the community member. So as I said, we did all that in the front where we created the look and feel. And so you can see now we have the call of duty portal here as we use for an example. And we're using the survey analytics new minimalist theme. We have rolled out a whole new layer of themes so that it can make it really easy to jump in, create it, match your brand, and have something that people really want to come to. Once they click log in, or if they join, you can see now they're into a community that's branded. They can see the surveys that are available. They can see how many points they have to redeem rewards. They can go in and redeem rewards, update their profile, all those engagement tools that I spoke of. And you can see I have an active survey here that's called Gamer Habits. Of course, it matches. It's been completely themed to what we have happening here. A nice, stylish survey. I think that's important. I'll throw that in free of charge for everyone. Make sure you have a stylish survey. Make sure it looks great. Make sure it's that someone really wants to come to and enjoy. And survey analytics really makes that easy. To really loop that all together, the communities are the futures. I think, as we said, you want to have that asset. You want to tap in. You want to get good data. You want to make sure you have the engagement pieces. And when you're out there walking around that Prius and kicking the tires, those are the things that we're looking for, Esther.
Thank you very much there, John. You know, it's definitely a very good looking portal, and I think a lot of people would be very interested in returning and taking surveys and really engaging with this Call of Duty portal. I did get a question from an audience member for you, John. They did say they love the Call of Duty portal that you just showed. Can SA help me build out a sweet looking portal like this?
That is a very good question. Survey Analytics has an awesome team that I've worked with before, a great design team and a programming team that can help theme communities and create communities to match your brand. We do love the fact that our tool is so easy to use and that people can go in and create their own, but we know that sometimes time is of the essence, and so we do offer the ability for people to tap into our design team and our programming team to make their community come to light.
That sounds great. All right, and the last person we have here, I'd like to introduce everyone again to Heather Carpenter, who is our client from Pilot Media, and she's here to talk about how Pilot Media uses the community solution on their end. Heather?
I'm a part of a team of 2 within Pilot Media. We provide market research to local businesses, which enables us to bring in additional revenue into the media company. We began using survey analytics in July of 2013. We switched from a system that was extremely limited in the survey development capabilities, and it also did not allow us to manage our own community. So we couldn't filter, we couldn't retest any panelists from a previous survey, so we were extremely limited. With survey analytics, we have the ability to create surveys as we need, and have full access to the community. Currently, we have over 1,700 active panelists within our research community. They receive points for completing surveys, which have been redeemed. They can be redeemed for a variety of gift cards. We use this incentive and helps maintain engagement. Our research community completes surveys used for communications testing, where we test the effectiveness of copy or creative before the clients invest significant funds. And we also test the effectiveness of ads already out in the market. We test awareness campaigns for the impact on the market, looking at the market's awareness before and after the campaign. Our research community also helps measure how the market makes purchasing decisions for areas specific to our clients. We are also able to run brand and competitive assessments through the community, along with new product and service evaluations. The community is also used for logo assessments, consumer recruitment, for product testing or evaluations. Basically, we've had clients that need a small focus group, so we're able to tap into our community to see anyone who would like to participate, and any other custom research solutions. We're able to use our panels for this. We typically get between 700 and 800 completes for any given survey, which is much higher than we've seen with any of our large research businesses in the area, depending on the focus of the survey and the filters used. Because we maintain our own panel, we're able to offer turnaround times between 4 and 15 business days, not months, and that's including analysis. And it's also at a fraction of the cost of the larger market research firms. We've really enjoyed having survey analytics and our access to the community panel portion.
That's great. Thank you so much. That was a lot of really good information in terms of how you use a community and how that's really benefited you. One question that did come in from an audience member here is, what kind of measurable differences have you seen when doing research with your communities versus without a community?
Well, we recently did a survey where it was actually ads sent out into the market to get just random participants, and you can really tell a difference. There's lots of dropout when we send it just out into the market, not directly to our community, and you can also tell that especially when we have our open-ended questions, it's not taken as seriously. It's just somebody filling out something hoping to win a prize. So when we actually use our community, they're engaged. They enjoy taking the surveys. They like participating, and they like the feeling that they're helping our local businesses, so they can help the community in some manner.
Great. Okay, so I've got a few more questions from the audience. This will now be our Q&A session. We're actually doing really well on time, so I think we'll probably wrap this up in about another 5 minutes. But 2 more questions that came through is the first one, and this is for anyone who wants to answer. So how are communities, or how can communities be beneficial for loyalty programs? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
Ivana, you want to take a stab at it? You always say great things.
Yeah, well, you must have been watching me with my finger on the unmute button.
So I know how you think. I know you got some juicy stuff for us right now. Kick it.
Well, actually, I think the people that are in your community are already loyal. I think where they can be really beneficial is expanding your loyalty program, right? So you want to leverage the people that are engaged, and I really love some of the tools that I saw that you had. You can engage that community into bringing friends along, right? To bring other folks into your loyalty program, right? Because if you think about the cost of acquiring a new customer, I forget what the statistic is these days. Given what I've said, it's probably pretty high. Whereas these community members are actually, I like to call them sneezers, they're so excited that they want to talk about what you have and they want to bring other friends along. And I think that's the biggest benefit that you have in these hyper engaged folks, literally piling people into loyal customers without hardly any marketing budget involved. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I believe it does. That's really good. We have another question here. What are best practices for persuading, or i.e., Call of Duty users to participate in your community? I think that's more towards John.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many different ways that you can put together a strategy in terms of getting more members and persuading more members. And I think one of the things you want to think about is always you want to either think of things as a campaign or think of it as a project. So know the touch points, know what you want to do and how you want to roll out. What I would suggest is that you look at ways that you make people those influencers, or you make people, as Ivana brilliantly stated, you make them sneezers, and then you bless them with incentives for doing that. So look for a tool that has a referral program, refer a friend program, shall I say, in which they get points for that. And I think those are some of the key things that you can do. Let others speak for you.
Fantastic. All right, and so we got one more question here, and then we're going to wrap up today. This question came in. They said, can too much personalization become detrimental to your panel?
Heather, what do you think about that one?
I think personalization is great, and yeah, I think too much can confuse things. Things can get lost within that, and I know just on my end, I can not realize that if something's not looking correct or working correctly, I might not see it. I end up depending on the panelists to let me know if something's not looking right after I've put a lot into it. So I think simple but personalized is always good.
All right, sounds great. Well, those are basically all the questions that we have. We'll definitely make sure to repost these questions on our blog. And also we'll have a copy of the slides and the recording available after the webinar within the next 24 hours. So if you do have any questions about anything you saw, feel free to reach out to us here at Survey Analytics. You can also reach Ivana directly, or Heather, John, or Vivek, and myself. We'd be happy to hear from you. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. We really appreciate it, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.